Imagine cruising at Mach 2.0, outflying the sunrise, all with 47 joules ticking quietly on your wrist.
Wait, exactly. That is the ultimate flex.
Welcome to Tick Drop Watch Everything. Find us at tick-drop.com and on all podcast platforms.
And we have got a massive one today.
We really do. So today we are taking a deep dive into something that is, well, honestly, it's one of the most romantic eras of engineering.
Oh, without a doubt.
We are looking at this incredible intersection of mid-century supersonic aviation history and just pure, unadulterated, high-end horology.
The sweet spot.
Exactly. So for those of you listening who love the sheer ambition of mid-century design, or, you just appreciate when a brand absolutely nails a historical tribute, you're going to want to pull up a chair for this one.
Because we aren't just talking about a standard catalog release today. We're talking about, it's a philosophy of travel, a philosophy of time itself, really.
Yeah, let's just get the main drop out there.
Yeah.
Today, we are unpacking the Breitling Navitimer B01 Chronograph 43 Tribute to Concorde.
What a name.
Right. To put it in one sentence, it is a masterclass in strapping aerospace history directly to your wrist.
Just the name has this undeniable gravity to it. Tribute to Concorde. But you really cannot understand why this piece is commanding so much attention, like why it's such a massive deal in the watch world right now, without actually understanding the legacy of the jet itself.
Yeah, you really have to go back to the source. We're talking about an aircraft nicknamed l'Oiseau Blanc.
Whitebird.
The Whitebird, exactly. January 21st, 1976. This is when two Concordes take flight simultaneously. One goes from Paris to Rio, and the other one goes from London to Bahrain.
Which completely shattered the paradigm of commercial travel. Before that moment, crossing the Atlantic was an absolute slog.
Oh, completely.
And suddenly you have this incredibly intimate cabin. We are talking about roughly 100 passengers. That's it.
That's 100 people.
Yeah, and they are flying at 60,000 feet, which, just put that in perspective, is essentially the edge of space for a commercial airliner.
I always try to put myself in those seats. Like, I want everyone listening to just imagine you're up there looking out those famously tiny windows.
Oh, yeah, the passport-sized windows.
Right, because the plane has to be pressurized so intensely at that extreme altitude, the windows were only about the size of a passport. But through that thick glass, you're looking directly into the stratosphere.
The deep blue.
And you're cutting flight times completely in half.
It remains the absolute zenith of passenger aviation performance. It was an era where humanity was dreaming on this massive, almost reckless scale.
Totally.
You're traveling at twice the speed of sound, yet inside the cabin, it's totally serene. You're drinking champagne while the fuselage outside is literally heating up from friction.
It's so cinematic. You can just hear the pilot coming over the intercom, right? Just that calm, collected, slightly crackling voice like, good afternoon, Concorde operating today's service from Paris to New York, cruising at Mach 2.0.
It gives you chills. It really does.
It does. But, okay, let me push back on the timeline here for a second, because this is where the narrative gets slightly tangled for me, and maybe for some of you listening, too.
Okay, lay it on me.
We have this incredible supersonic jet from 1976, but the Navitimer itself, that design goes way, way back to 1952.
Yep, it does.
So how do these two completely different eras of aviation actually fit together? Like, isn't it a bit of an anachronism to pair a 50s watch with a 70s jet?
That is the exact friction point a lot of people bring up. But you have to dig into what the Navitimer actually was to the aviation community to appreciate the connection.
Yeah, okay.
They represent two halves of the exact same pursuit. So go back to 1952. Willy Breitling creates a chronograph with a circular slide rule on the bezel.
And for anyone who hasn't used one, which is probably most of us in the digital age, this isn't just a fancy ring of numbers. It's a literal, wearable analog computer.
It is. It's a logarithmic scale. Pilots would physically rotate the outer ring to align with fixed numbers on the inner dial.
Right, to do the math.
Exactly. If you knew your speed and your time in the air, you could align the bezel and instantly read your exact fuel consumption, or your distance traveled, or your rate of climb.
Which is wild to think about doing while flying a plane.
Well, in an era before digital flight management systems, if your cockpit instruments failed, that watch was your literal lifeline. It was so revolutionary that by 1954, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the AOPA, made it their official watch.
And didn't astronaut Scott Carpenter even take a version of it into space?
He did, in 1962. It was the trusted flight instrument. So when you bridge that gap to 1976...
I see where you're going.
The Concorde shrank the world physically, turning hours into minutes. But the Navitimer was the underlying math that built that world. The people flying those planes, the engineers designing them, they relied on this exact kind of mechanical calculation.
The jet is the muscle, the watch is the brain.
Exactly.
That makes total sense when you frame it like that. So let's look at how they translated that history into the physical metal of this watch, because visually, it is an absolute knockout.
It really is stunning.
I'm completely geeking out over the dial. It is this very specific, rich shade of blue.
Which Breitling specifically engineered to match the exact color of the stratosphere as seen from the plane's windows at 60,000 feet.
It's not just a generic navy. It's that deep, almost void-like black blue of the upper atmosphere. And the contrast they've built into it is striking.
The white elements, you mean?
Yeah, you have that deep background, but then you have these crisp white subdials, the totalizers for the chronograph, and the white bidirectional slide rule.
And that stark white against the dark blue is a direct narrative nod to the l'oiseau blanc nickname, the white bird flying through the stratosphere.
Oh, that's clever.
Right. It's highly legible, yes, but every single element is telling a piece of the story.
And I want listeners to picture the crystal covering that dial, because it's a cambered sapphire, meaning it has a distinct, pronounced dome to it, but it's glare-proofed on both the inside and the outside.
Which is crucial, because a highly domed crystal usually acts like a magnifying mirror, catching every single reflection in the room.
It's basically unreadable otherwise.
Exactly. By treating both sides with an anti-reflective coating, the glass almost vanishes.
It honestly looks exactly like a curved cockpit windshield, and it's housed in a 43mm stainless steel case.
A classic Navitimer size.
Now, 43mm gives it a ton of presence on the wrist. But here's the spec that absolutely blew my mind. It's 13.69mm thick, and the whole thing weighs exactly 97.83 grams.
The specificity of that weight is fascinating.
97.83 grams. Think about that. You're meant to imagine the extreme G-forces a pilot experiences on takeoff, pressing them back into their seat.
Yeah, you don't want a brick on your arm.
Exactly. You don't want a heavy, unbalanced anchor on your wrist when you're pulling Gs. This manages to feel incredibly robust, like a true instrument, but it's balanced perfectly.
And a lot of that balance comes down to what is physically inside the case. We have to talk about the engine powering this thing.
Oh, absolutely. And what blows my mind is the engine they chose. They didn't just throw an off-the-shelf standard movement in there. They went with the Breitling 01.
The B01 manufacture caliber. And just to clarify that term for anyone newer to collecting.
Yeah, please do.
Manufacture caliber means Breitling designed and built this engine entirely in-house, from the ground up, specifically for their own watches. It's not outsourced parts.
It's a self-winding mechanical movement beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, which, let's unpack that for a second. That's 4 hertz. The balance wheel is oscillating back and forth 8 times every single second.
Which does 2 very important things. First, it means the central chronograph seconds hand sweeps at this beautiful, buttery smoothness. There's no jerky ticking, it just glides.
It's hypnotic.
It really is. And second, that higher frequency means the watch recovers much faster from physical shocks. If you bump your wrist against a door frame or a cockpit panel, the physics of that rapid oscillation help the watch maintain its accuracy instantly.
It also features a 70-hour power reserve. So practically speaking, you take it off Friday evening after work, leave it on your dresser, put it back on Monday morning, and it hasn't skipped a single beat. No winding required.
It is the absolute sweet spot of modern watchmaking. And we really should talk about the 47 jewels inside this movement.
Yeah, why 47? Because a standard 3-hand watch usually has around 21 or 25, right?
Right. It comes down to the sheer complexity of the chronograph, the stopwatch mechanism itself.
Okay.
Those jewels aren't there for decoration. They are microscopic, lab-grown synthetic rubies. They are incredibly hard and incredibly smooth.
So they use them for friction reduction.
Exactly. Watchmakers place them at the pivot points of the gear train to reduce metal-on-metal friction. A chronograph has dozens of extra moving parts, levers, cams, wheels, to start, stop, and reset the time perfectly to a quarter of a second.
Which is a lot of mechanical stress.
Ton of stress. More moving parts means more friction, which requires more joules to keep the engine running flawlessly for decades.
It's basically a micro machine strapped to your arm. You have 30-minute and 12-hour totalizers to track elapsed time, plus a dial aperture for the date. It is a serious, serious piece of hardware.
Oh, without question.
But, and here's the big question. We have the Heritage, we have the dual glare-proofed Sapphire, we have the 47-jewel in-house engine. The retail price is set at €9,750, VAT included.
Yes, it is.
I have to challenge you on this. Nearly 10,000 euros. That is a massive chunk of change.
It's not cheap.
No, we are talking about a stainless steel watch on a leather strap. There's no solid gold here, no platinum. You could buy a very reliable used car for 10,000 euros. Is it actually worth it? I mean, give me your verdict.
I completely understand the hesitation. I really do. When you strip it down to raw materials, steel and leather, no, the math doesn't compute.
Right.
But that's not what horology is. You are paying for the years of R&D behind that B01 movement. You are paying for the meticulous hand finishing of the dial, the incredibly complex geometry of the case, and honestly,
What?
you are paying for the exclusivity of the Concorde license and the sheer storytelling. For me, because of the historical execution and the mechanical pedigree, I'm giving this a hot verdict. It is an absolute must-buy.
See, I want to be cynical about it. I really do. I look at that number and wince.
I know.
But then I think about the tactile experience. Feeling the resistance of those chronograph pushers when you click them in, the way that domed sapphire distorts the dial at extreme angles.
The slide rule action?
Yeah, the slide rule. It's not just a watch, it's an artifact. I'm begrudgingly agreeing with you. It is a scorching hot release.
It's an emotional purchase, but it's backed up by serious horological specs. Though I will say, water resistance is only 3 bars, so 30 meters. So keep it in the cockpit, not the swimming pool.
Good tip. Now, speaking of modern specs, what fascinates me is the contrast in how Breitling is treating the ownership of this piece. Because we just spent the last 10 minutes romanticizing 1950s analog flight computers and 1970s jet engines.
Yeah, very analog.
But the secondary update tied to this release drops us right into the cutting edge of the 2020s.
Oh, the digital passport. It is such a wild pivot, but it makes so much sense.
It really does. So, for those listening, when you buy this Navitimer, you don't just get a heavy wooden box and a stamped paper warranty card. Breitling is issuing a private, unique digital passport linked directly to your specific watch via blockchain technology.
Think about the juxtaposition there. You have a highly mechanical, old-school gear train on your wrist, secured by 47 tiny rubies. And its authenticity is secured by an invisible, decentralized digital ledger in the cloud.
I actually love it. Think about the anxiety of moving houses and trying to figure out where you packed your watch's original papers.
The worst feeling.
Right, because the box and papers add so much value to a luxury watch on the secondary market. By putting it on the blockchain, you have a permanent, unforgeable record of authenticity, ownership, and service history.
It completely modernizes the luxury experience without touching the mechanical soul of the watch itself. For me, bringing blockchain into the ownership cycle is a massive win. I definitely call it a hot feature.
Absolutely a hot feature. Must have going forward. But moving from the digital cloud back to the physical wrist, let's talk about the boutique experience and how this thing actually wears.
Right. So Breitling is rolling out complimentary express delivery and returns for all new orders, making that online barrier to entry completely frictionless.
Which is great for a 10,000 euro purchase.
Exactly. But the tactile star of the show here is the strap. It is a straight, deep blue alligator leather.
Perfectly matching that stratosphere dial.
Exactly. And it has a 22 millimeter lug width at the case, tapering down to 18 millimeters at the buckle.
That taper makes such a difference.
It's so important because it slims the profile down under the wrist, and it secures with an 18 millimeter stainless steel folding clasp.
I want listeners to imagine that sensation. You slip it on, and you don't just have a simple pin buckle that creases the leather over time. You get that highly engineered, very satisfying metallic click of a premium folding clasp locking into place.
It elevates the entire presentation. You wouldn't wear this on a rugged canvas NATO strap. The blue alligator firmly plants it in the luxury dress tool category.
Yeah, you could wear it anywhere.
You could comfortably wear this with a tailored suit, and it wouldn't look out of place at all. The presentation is top tier. I'm giving this strap and boutique experience a very hot verdict.
So the presentation is flawless, the engine is in-house, the story is legendary, which brings us to the elephant in the room actually getting one.
Ah, yes.
The hunt.
We need to do a quick market check here. Is this watch going to be heavily flipped on the secondary market?
Well, we have to look at the scarcity. This is not a standard production run. It is strictly limited to 593 pieces worldwide.
And I'm so glad you brought up that number because 593 is not some random marketing digit pulled out of a hat. This is my absolute favorite Easter egg of the entire release. Why 593?
It's a direct homage to the Olympus 593 turbojet engines, the massive afterburning engines that literally propelled the Concorde to Mach 2. It is such a brilliant insider detail. If you know, you know. And they've immortalized that on the screwed-in sapphire crystal caseback.
The engraving is beautiful.
Right. When you take the watch off and flip it over, you can actually see the beat-01 movement working through the glass. But surrounding that window are these highly collectible engravings. You get one of 593, tribute to Concorde, jetliner, and my personal favorite, just aggressively stamped into the steel, Mach 2.
It's incredibly cool. So to answer your question about the gray market, yes.
Figured.
The intersection of Concorde memorabilia collectors and hardcore Breitling enthusiasts is a very passionate, very well-funded group.
Oh, absolutely.
With only 593 units globally, unless you are a highly connected client with a serious purchase history at your local boutique, you are going to struggle to see this at retail. I fully expect this to trade at a significant premium above that €9,750 mark almost immediately.
It's not going to sit in a window display. These are going straight from the boutique into climate-controlled safes and onto the wrists of serious aviation nerds.
The story is just too compelling to ignore.
Which actually brings me to a thought I want to leave everyone listening with today.
Lay it on us.
We've spent the last, 15 minutes talking about speeds and feeds. We're talking about Mach 2.0, twice the speed of sound, Olympus turbojets.
Pushing the limits.
Exactly. The Concorde represented this hyper-ambitious era where humanity was completely obsessed with getting places faster, shrinking the globe, defeating time itself.
It was an era entirely defined by maximum velocity.
But think about the profound irony of what we're actually discussing today. Strapping a mechanical, self-winding chronograph with 47 meticulously placed jewels to your wrist, that is the exact opposite. That is entirely about slowing down. It's about appreciating the sheer time and immense patience it takes a master watchmaker to craft something beautiful by hand. We're using the ultimate historical symbol of blistering speed to celebrate the ultimate modern symbol of patience.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. We've transitioned from a culture of conquering time to a culture of savoring it.
Something for all of you to mull over the next time you hear a plane overhead or look down at the ticking seconds hand on your own wrist. That's it for today's Tick Drop. Find more at tickdrop.com, and we'll see you next drop.